Welcome to the Alaskan Journey Podcast. My name is Jamin Gurker, and I'm your first friend in Alaska, and I'm an associate real estate broker in Southcentral Alaska, which includes Anchorage, Wasilla, Palmer, Big Lake, and Houston. And today we're very lucky to be joined by Brad. He has recently moved to kind of the Wasilla area, but, and this is the thing that's really unique about Brad, you were actually coming in and you've actually lived in Ketchikan before.
Correct.
And
so I was born down there, lived down there till I was about 8. Parents split up, went down lower 48, came back every summer because it was way better in Ketchikan than it is in the lower 48. And graduated high school, moved back to Ketchikan permanently. Well, intentional was permanently. And then did a year, went in the military, traveled around, and came back up to Wasilla area.
So for people who don't know, like how big is Ketchikan?
So the main road is 32 miles long from end to end. And so if you look up the population of Ketchikan, it actually includes outlying islands as far as population. So I'm not sure what it is now. It's been a while since I've been back there, but maybe 30,000-ish.
Oh, so about 30,000 people who live there?
Within the outlying islands, too. They count it all.
How many outlying islands are there? Like, are we talking like a handful, or like how many are there?
There's multitude. Mainly people only live on a couple different ones. You got Revillagigedo is the main one, and then you've got one that's straight across where the airport's at, of Gravina. And I think they're starting to build that up a lot more too.
Gotcha. What's there to do really in Ketchikan? Like, what's the driving force of the economy there?
So for economy wise, it used to be there was a pulp mill that shut down many years ago. They actually imploded it, but now, of course, then I went to fisheries, commercial fisheries, salmon, diving, gooey ducks, urchin, abalone. And now a lot of it is tourism, right? With the big ships that come in all summer long. And then the bad thing is that a lot of the stores that are there are no longer local people owned. That the cruise ships own most of them, and they make all their money in the summer, and then they shut down in the winter. So the money goes south.
So when we say 30,000 people there, is that including like all the seasonal people that are coming in, working, and then going, or are those the full-timers?
No, that's pretty much primarily the full-timers. The cruise ships will bring in their own staff up for the season, and then they'll go back down south after the cruise ship season's over.
What's kind of the perception of people living in Ketchikan for all the tourism that's coming in? Because I've noticed the folks in Southeast Alaska, they're either, like the song from Beauty and the Beast, be our guest, or, right, kind of the exact opposite of that. So what's kind of the perception in Ketchikan?
So for me, when I was there, and I still have a brother that lives in Ketchikan. I've got another brother that lives outside of it on one of the islands, Prince of Wales. And my dad, he just now moved down to Seattle area with my sister because he's 90 plus. But so perception, I'm sure the businesses that are locally owned are great and they love it. But for the general person, it's a nightmare. I've seen 5 boats in there at once, 5 ships, and there's, 10,000, maybe 5,000 people on a boat.
Do you get people coming in on the ferry very often? Like, is that one of those places where you can disembark and then make the drive up to the rest of Alaska, or is there really no ferry traffic of people coming up from
ferry
Seattle?
is coming up from Bellingham. So Ketchikan is actually the first city or first town when you come into Southeast Alaska. It's its own island, so there's no main road access. You actually don't even have road access until you get to like Haines and Skagway. Juneau's mainland, but it's geographically isolated. But yeah, so it's kind of rough to get into and out of. A lot of people put stuff on the barge. and have their stuff shipped up. Ferry is expensive, and it's 36 hours from Bellingham all the way up to Ketchikan. Great trip, but it's not cheap.
I feel like everyone who lives there probably has to own a boat. Is that pretty accurate?
So, with being from down southeast Alaska, it's an entirely different world than it is up here. Right, Alaska's so big that you've got all the way from permafrost way up north by Barrow, and then they call it the Banana Belt, or it's a rainforest down there in Ketchikan. So it's an entirely different world. But so that was my interpretation, not my interpretation, my idea, what I was used to as far as Alaska, and was the ocean type. So yeah, everybody owns boats down there. There's, I want to say, at least 5 different boat harbors, and they're just plumb full. And people still have boats in the yards and everything else. But yeah, it's a lot more water orientated than up here.
How much time do people spend? So is that just kind of like the default thing that you're going to do? Like if you have any downtime in like the Ketchikan or one of these smaller communities, jump in the boat and, I don't know, go fishing or explore these different islands? Like, is that kind of what you do there? Or is there really a culture of, I don't know, hiking and doing other stuff more land-based, or is it just kind of a mix?
It's a mix. They've got a lot of, a few trails. One of the big ones is called Deer Mountain. Down, you can hike to the top of the mountain. It's a very popular trail. There's a lot of, it's a lot of old growth forest, so you can kind of make your own as well. Or if you go up towards the mountains, towards places like Harriet Hunt, there's a lot of trails that are up there too.
What's the culture like there?
Culture-wise, I think it's more more community orientated because you're on an island, so you kind of have to rely on each other a little bit more. It seems like there's a lot more communication amongst people. Like when we would go there, we go fishing when the salmon are running. They don't really run up the streams as much as they do here. It's more through the ocean. So by word of mouth, you'd find out where the fish are. Hey, the fish are running past Mountain Point, and that's where you would just go fish. So it's word of mouth.
So definitely a lot more community-based. Are you kind of missing that with a Ketchikan versus like the Wasilla area, or is it a different kind of community, or is the emphasis just two ships passing in the night as far as what you consider community, or is it kind of a different I don't know, definition, I guess we can go off of?
Right. As far as community-wise, down there, I think that you help out your neighbors a whole lot more, right, with fishing boats and things like that. Up here, it kind of seems, I guess you got different people's perspective up here too. Some people are, oh, it's great, community orientated, and then other ones are, people are just walking past each other and not even saying hi and just on their own little mission.
Yeah, that's so I did live in a little town called Hardin, Montana, which its biggest claim to fame is it's about 30 minutes away from the Little Bighorn, and nothing going on there, but it's like population like 2,000. So if you pass someone on the street, you don't wave at them, like you're going to hear about it later.
My uncle actually lives in Harding.
Oh, no
He
fooling.
lives right on the Bighorn. Yep.
Man, that's what, like, I have never met anyone who can actually say they know anyone else that's been in Hardin. That's awesome.
So I used to live Montana northern border. So I've been very, very remote, but yeah, my uncle lives down there.
Man, that's awesome. So with Ketchikan then, like what does the schooling options look like? Like if you have someone that's, considering moving there, what can they expect, if they have kids and they're trying to figure out what that scene looks like?
Okay. As far as schools, if you look now on Google or on the internet, there's many, many more schools than what there was when I was there. There was essentially one high school, one junior high, a couple of elementaries, and then another high school that was for, at the time, it was known as like the problem child high school. So those are the ones that were there.
The prom child high school. Like how bad do kids get on on Ketchikan?
There's not a whole lot to do. So people get in some trouble. You get your normal, it's like every other high school anywhere else you go. You got your knuckleheads that want to act up and be disrespectful to the extreme. So they go off to, and it's a different type of learning over there too. So it's not a conventional classroom. It's more hands-on, get them involved.
Gotcha. And as far as the the community aspect, like where's or what is kind of the thing that kind of makes people kind of coalesce a little bit? I've noticed some communities, it's like, churches, schools. Is there anything specifically where the community feels like it's kind of coming together at any one point to do something? I don't know. Maybe you guys do that just getting ready for tourist season. And it's like, well, let's do this. But, what does that look like for you guys?
I think a lot of it is just the fishing industry. It used to be that a huge employer was, like I said, the pulp mill before. So a lot of people knew each other from there and would interact from there. But I think a lot of it now is mostly just the fishing industry and trying to get the best of that.
Gotcha. And what would you say the environment is like there? Because, I love what you were saying before, that Alaska is just so diverse. Like it's a lot of people just have like one setting for Alaska and assume that's just it for the entire state. But for kind of your neck of the woods originally, Ketchikan, like what's kind of the environment like?
So down there, it's a lot more old growth trees. It's in Tongass National Forest.
So when you say old growth, what does that mean?
So big natural trees that just cover everything. Up here, there's a lot more rocky mountains, sharper edges over there. Down there in Ketchikan, it's just more like a blanket of trees that just go everywhere. You walk in there, the whole underside in the forest is all open because a lot of the trees, they block I don't say block the light, but block so that the brush can't grow or doesn't grow. Or you get in some areas where it's just extremely thick and you can't even walk through it.
I can definitely. I haven't really spent a whole lot of time down there. I have been to Kodiak though.
Mm-hmm.
Have you been there? Is it it's kind of comparable to that?
I've been to Kodiak a couple times. The parts of Kodiak I've been to, it's a lot more flat and grassy and more plains. But mountain-wise, I could see that. Or tree-wise, I could see it.
Yeah. What about is there like a lot of moss out there too? Because I was walking around Kodiak. I am hiking all by myself in Kodiak Bear Country, and the silence was just deafening. And it's just because there was like 2, 3, 4 inches of moss on everything. So silence was deafening. Is it kind of like that down in Ketchikan as well?
Absolutely, because a lot of the moss, though, grow on trees. The trees keep in the moisture, a lot of nutrients in the ground. So there's a lot of moss in the ground on the sides of the trees and dead trees and things like that.
Gotcha. Now, kind of growing up, it sounds like you kind of had an appreciation for Ketchikan, like just even as you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of kids, they just can't wait to get the heck out of Dodge, like when they're younger. For you seem to actually like it. So for you, what was the thing about Ketchikan that really appealed to you?
I think I like the old growth, the water. Like I said, a lot of my family was there. My dad would always go fishing, diving. It was just the weather was not hot, but it was nice.
Did you really get into the diving while you were there?
I did. So actually, I started diving. I would help out my dad when I was young, like single digits, and I got certified at 16, which is the minimum age.
So what's the purpose of diving there? Is it just purely recreational, or is there kind of a work component to it?
There's both. So recreational, just go out, have fun, do some personal work like we do, just scouting around, or we've had friends that put out docks. So we'd fill up the water barrels, 55-gallon barrels full of concrete, and kind of float them out there and help them out with that. So it's worked for us, but there's also a lot of commercial that's down there, commercial diving.
Got it. And as far as like the recreation, like for me, the idea of not being able to see around me is just like my own personal version of hell. Like what's the appeal for recreational diving?
The water's not always that murky. Up here, it's the water's treacherous, especially right around Anchorage. Down there, it's fairly clear. You can see a ways. I mean, it's not going to be like Caribbean clear, but it's not bad, and it is kind of spooky sometimes. Right, people go spearfishing, things like that too. So you never know what's going to be around, but there's not a lot of predatory animals down there, so it's pretty safe.
Yeah. You guys, assuming you get like the killer whales and like the whales and all that, do you guys see those like from the island, or is that something you have to really go out and look for them?
So the channel that's in front of Ketchikan, they'll go up and down there. They'll chase the salmon, things like that. They'll get some whales through there every once in a while, like humpback gray whales. But if you go just on the backside of Gravina Island, it's a channel or a strait that's open water, so they'll travel up there a lot more.
Man, that's so cool. Because in Juneau they've got like that little channel kind of going right through town, and they've got the big bridge going over it. I think was it Gustavus?
I'm not
Island?
sure.
Maybe that's not it. I don't know. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But they've got like that little island where little bridge going right over the top of it, and you see like killer whales just swimming right under the bridge and everything. So
it's great.
Yeah, just beautiful. Yep, go ahead.
So my dad, he owned some property out on a place called Marble Island, and we'd go out there periodically in the summer too. And I'd go out there kneeboarding behind his skiff, and there's whales breaching, not right on me, but a little ways away. But yeah, it's just amazing because that's all open water. Next stop, Japan.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. So is that like the kind of stuff you do like on a Friday night where everyone's got some time off, let's go have some fun? Is that what's kind of on the menu if you're in Ketchikan?
A lot of it is just hit the water, go fishing in the weekends, right? You catch your own fresh fish for dinner, and but a lot of it, there's a lot of jet skis down there, and just kneeboarding, water skiing, things like that. It's fun.
Gotcha. Okay, so after that, I think the life story was join the military, and then left Ketchikan, and then got out of the military, retired, and came back to Alaska. And I'm just kind of curious, what made you not go back to Ketchikan and instead go to Wasilla?
So, like I said, I went in the military, enlisted in November of 97, got shipped off to basic training in January of 98. So those are actually the only two times I've been to Anchorage area, because everybody from all over Alaska comes to Anchorage for their in-processing. So from there...
Real quick, what was your impression of Anchorage?
I don't really remember it because it was...
Oh, come on.
You
can talk smack.
I was
it's
like
fine.
19. I was 19, so I had no idea. And it was middle of winter, so it's a whole different environment versus summer.
Fair enough.
But so yeah, it was good. But yeah, so went off in the military. Did that. Actually, when I got off active duty in 2004, I moved back to Seattle. And that's just because getting a fresh start, fresh out of the military, looking for new jobs. The economy down there in Seattle area was a whole lot better than Ketchikan. And I want to set myself up for success. So I went there. Seems like a lot of people bounce back and forth between Ketchikan and Seattle area, as far as moving back and forth.
Really? So is that, if people are moving to Ketchikan, would you say it's usually people from Seattle then?
Usually it's people that are from Ketchikan. For whatever reason, they're just moving back. They just, I'm going to go live in Seattle for a few years and then come back up to Alaska.
Interesting.
Or right? When people get their dividends, they fly down to Seattle and dump it all and at Costco or wherever else and have it shipped back up. So Seattle is a big part of Ketchikan.
Gotcha. And what was it like for you adjusting to Seattle?
So I've been there before because my sisters lived there for many, many years. I liked having everything right there, but when you go from island life to big city life, right, traffic is a pain in the butt. But it was nice to have more amenities there that you don't have to, hey, when's the barge coming in for the groceries and things like that. So,
yeah, that's another topic there. What is kind of the cost of living, because everything is so closely tied to like the ferry system and the barge and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know, is it any more expensive in Ketchikan than Seattle just because they're so close? Or, what is the cost of living like there?
I feel it's a whole lot. Well, nowadays with Seattle, I'm not sure because I had a house in Tacoma that I bought for $136, and I think I looked it up recently, and it was almost $500,000.
Jeez.
So Ketchikan's not that bad. I don't think it blew up that much. But it's definitely not cheap. I think it's more expensive than here just because there's more avenues to get things up here. But down there, it's pretty much solely relying on the barge.
With the population there, is it a growing population? Is it maintaining? Is it kind of stagnant? Like, what's the trajectory for Ketchikan?
My understanding now is that it's on the decline just because there's not a whole lot of industry there right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, with the fisheries up here, they're going downhill. I have my own personal beliefs on why, but it could just be a cycle that fish do and all that sort of stuff. But I think there's a lot more opportunities for people, whether it be up here, if you want to stay in Alaska, or lower 48, like Seattle area, because it's the same climate as Seattle. So it's just a huge version, I guess you can kind of say, as far as climate-wise.
Right. So Seattle, and then made the move up here to Southcentral Alaska. And what was that? What was that like for you?
Actually, from Seattle, I've moved all over the U.S.
Okay.
Seattle, I moved to Montana down to Texas, West Texas, over to Georgia.
Oh, no fool. What part of West Texas?
It's about 4 hours from El Paso. So it's a place called Presidio.
Gotcha. Okay.
By Big Bend National Park.
Gotcha. Okay. I lived in San Angelo for about a decade. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our stories are surprisingly lining up here.
Right.
So.
Right. So from Texas, moved over to Georgia, and then moved. I was so excited to actually be able to go back to Alaska. I've been trying for a while, and I finally had the opportunity to. So I moved back up here almost 2 years ago.
Did you have any? No, because you were about 19, so you were old enough to kind of start seeing Alaska through an adult's eyes and everything. Did you have any perceptions, like memories of Alaska that, where you just knew once you got here things had changed? Like, did you have any moments like that when you were, moving up here and looking into making the move again?
So I didn't really know what to expect, I guess, with Anchorage, because I was only up here twice, and when you're enlisting in the military, you're pretty much locked down in the hotel. And like I said, it was wintertime, so I really didn't know what to expect. But when I'm a big research guy, so I look at Google Maps a lot. I look at all different types of stuff, YouTube, all that stuff. And I don't want to say concerned, but my idea of Alaska was southeast, like I said, which is completely different than here. So I was like, I got to get a big truck because I want all my Alaska toys. And started looking around, and I was like, there's no boat harbors anywhere. To where Ketchikan, like I said, there's multitude. So it started to click a little bit then, but it didn't set in until I got up here that it's not the same world.
Yeah, so not the same world, and been up here for a couple of years at this point.
Right.
And how is it? Not the same world. I mean, obviously, we're don't have the harbors and all that, but
Right.
how else is it not the same world?
It's a lot more land orientated here as far as moose and caribou and being able to drive. But what's kind of ironic is that some of the big destinations here locally, right, Seward and Homer, things like that, those are pretty much like Southeast, right on the water. You got harbors everywhere, seagulls and eagles flying around, and like I said, what's kind of ironic is that people live here, but hey, let's go to Seward because it's so great. Well, Southeast Alaska is essentially just like that. So you're living in what I would consider more of a paradise all year long, as far as a destination spot, So,
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. So, how would you say the cultures are different between Ketchikan and Wasilla?
culture-wise, here we're almost 300,000 people.
Mhm.
There's, I don't know, it's just kind of different wise. Like, here's more big city. It's the biggest city in Alaska, so it's more of a big city type mentality. And then Ketchikan is a little more community orientated and I guess more friendly towards each other. Of course, everybody has their enemies too, but more friendly towards each other, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you found any aspects of community that's been easy to kind of plug into here in the area?
Not so much because I drive 110 miles a day and over an hour, and it's, plus on top of that, work the 8 hours and get up and get ready for work. So by the time I get home, I got 2 hours, eat dinner, hang out with the dogs, and go to bed and do it all over. And it's just it's a little rough. It seems like in the summer, everybody's gone going fishing. In the winter, everybody's gone going down south to warm up or snow machining or just things like that. So you have your own little groups of people that you hang out with, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Have you started getting more into like any of the, I don't know, we'll call them more Southcentral Alaska activities yet, or is that still going to be a process for you?
It's still a process. Alaska toys are not cheap. So it's a process to build up to that. I got a big four-wheeler and things like that. So getting out and about and that sort of stuff is good up here. But I haven't got the snow machines yet, and they're probably next on the list.
Yeah, what kind of snow machining do you think you would do? Like more of the trail stuff, or like going up into the mountains and being 6 feet in the snow? Like which? But like I found out, apparently there are two big camps of snow machiners. So which one do you think you'd go with?
Which one would I like to go with, or which one would I probably end up going with? I would like to do
money's
the deep
not an
powder.
option. Money's not an option. So like just whatever you want to do.
I like the aspect of being up top of the mountains, nothing but snow, right at the deep powder, the 6 feet or 20 feet or whatever's up there with your big tracks. But at the same time, it's nice just to have a smaller, more of a trail sled and be able to go on those too, because they're not very. There's a few of them that you can use back and forth, but kind of like a truck or an SUV. It's kind of good for this and kind of good for that, but not really good at either one.
Yeah, I mean, I've had a couple of, I've gone on like a couple of just small day excursions and all that, and I mean, we've gone out there with the snow machines that are designed for like the deep powder up in the mountains. We've used them on the trails, and you can use them for that, but good grief, you got to stop and let them cool off like every 30 minutes to an hour.
Right.
You're just going to have one big welded piece of metal.
There's a lot more horsepower in those. They need a lot more. They need the snow being packed in there and thrown on there just to get them cooled off, yeah.
Right. Do you, I don't know, go visit like Ketchikan and, that? Have you been back to Ketchikan since you've been back to Alaska?
I have not in the last couple of years, and I want to. And like I said, my brother's down there, and I just talking to him a little bit today. And I know it's changed so much that I want to go just to visit it again. But at the same time, I don't want to ruin what I have in my head as far as what it was like.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of a catch-22. I don't know. I've wanted to. In fact, last summer, I was trying to work together a ferry to go jump on the ferry in Haines or Skagway and then just kind of island hop all the way down, stay a few days at this town, right, Juneau, Sitka. But the ferry schedule didn't really work out like that. It would have taken probably a month and a half, and that just wasn't feasible. So I haven't been back, but I would like to. But at the same time, I got my own mind on what it was. I don't want to tarnish that either, you know.
Yeah, I totally know what you're talking about. Totally know what you're talking about. So for the people looking at, well, actually, let's do this real quick. What made you decide to move to Wasilla as opposed to Anchorage? Because Anchorage sounds like it would have been significantly shorter as far as the commute, but you decided to do the commute anyway, and still work in Anchorage. So what made you decide to live in Wasilla?
So you get more bang for your buck as far as house and a little bit of property. Like the house I got, it was brand new. It's on an acre. You're not going to find that in Anchorage. Anchorage, right? Yes, you have all your amenities, but you pay for them, right? So the house is a lot more. Cost of living is a lot more. Anchorage, their borough has a tax to where you go out in the valley, Wasilla, that area, and it's just a lot more peaceful. Like that. My neighbors are, right, we each have an acre, so we're pushed off a little bit and a little more individual, I guess.
Yeah. So for the people who are expecting kind of an off-grid lifestyle, would you say that's the norm? Like, what should people's expectations be if they're moving to somewhere like Wasilla?
So I know the Southeast, I know the lower 48 idea of Alaska is igloos and things like that. It's a normal house, right? Mine's a 3-bedroom house, 3-car garage. I wanted a big garage because Alaska toys. But no, it's a regular house. A lot of it. I got a fireplace. Right, a lot of it's gas. Out there's a lot of gas. So all the appliances but it's a regular house. It's not anything weird.
But you do have to chop like the hole in the ice for your water in the morning, right? Like,
so a lot of people are on a well, so it just comes right up. The water's phenomenal. It's always nice and fresh and cold. But yeah, it's right now my yards are a sheet of ice. It's a big ice skating rink right now, as most of the area is for this winter because it's not been the greatest, I don't think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this probably is not going to mean anything to anyone listening, but how did you deal with the, unfortunately, we don't name our windstorms up here.
Right.
Like we should, because then we'd qualify for FEMA and all that. But we had windstorms where winds were up to 107, 110 miles per hour. Like did you have any issues, damage, anything like that at your place?
You're referring to the ones for this past week?
Past weekend,
yeah. There was nothing out there. I kind of live in a little bit of a bowl, and I liked that. When I went out there and was house hunting, my realtor, we were looking at some of them right next to some of the big riverbeds and things like that. He's like, it gets windy going down here. So I was like, nope. Living in Montana, it get extremely windy, so I was like, I don't want to deal with that anymore. So I kind of got back into where a little bit more trees. The only bad thing is that a lot of the trees are dead due to the beetle infestation.
Oh.
So I've had a lot of trees that'll blow over onto my fence or in the yard or things like that. But nothing's hit the house, things like that. But
yeah, I mean, the good news is if it looks like one of those trees are going to fall down, you can, even if it's on the neighbor's property, usually they're pretty cool. Just go and talk to them and knock down that tree before it becomes a problem.
Oh, absolutely. Nobody wants a tree to fall in their house or, their kids' toys out back or 6-foot chain link fence. Nobody wants that to be crushed anyway. So that's a good community aspect.
Absolutely. Have you noticed any big differences in how you handle the winter in Ketchikan versus like South Central? Because I know Ketchikan is a lot closer to Seattle,
Hmm.
and I mean, it's still going to be less sunlight probably than most people are used to, but South Central, Anchorage, Wasilla, like that's still going to be less sunlight, even more or even less than what people are used to in the lower 48. Have you noticed really any kind of a difference for you, or is it just kind of not a factor?
As far as versus Ketchikan, it's when I was going to school down there, or at elementary school, I'd leave the babysitters. It'd be dark and walk into school, and then when I walk home, it was dark. So, or when I was doing construction down there, it'd be getting dark about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's
Really,
not
2 o'clock?
right around there, I believe, 2, 3 o'clock,
Wow.
or maybe storm wise. I wasn't sure, but it was we'd have to quit early.
Right.
And so it's not as drastic up here. Like up here, you get right in summertime, June, it gets dusk, and that's about it at night, right? But then in the winter here, it's I drive to work in the dark, drive home in the dark.
Yeah.
But just something that you get used to. A lot of people have issues with it, but I think my guess is the key is you can't just sit in your house and just, it's wintertime. You have to get out there and you have to at least do something. I just had a coworker move up from Southern Arizona, and he was taking videos at like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the morning because it was still dark. And he couldn't grasp that. So, but yeah, it's down there in Ketchikan, it's pretty much the same. Maybe a little bit not as drastic, but it's essentially the same.
Got it. So you haven't really noticed any new challenges with the dark in the wintertime?
No, I don't mind it at all. In fact, it's almost a little bit easier because if you're trying to sleep, it's a whole lot easier to fall asleep when it's dark than when you got the sun out all night long. Blackout shades are obviously a big thing in the summer up here, but I haven't noticed much of a difference.
Gotcha. So this question, I don't actually get to ask a whole lot of people on this podcast this because, mostly it's people who've recently moved up here, but, you're been up here for a little bit. You're pretty salty. So from your perspective, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing Alaska?
Alaska as a whole?
Alaska as a whole. And you know what? We can say Wasilla too. Let's say Alaska as a whole, though.
Some of the biggest challenges, in my opinion, is people in power in the lower 48 that have never been up here or been up here for a couple weeks in the summer, and they just try to run the state with fisheries, with logging, because a lot of the industry up here is the natural resources, right? Whether it be oil, whether it be logging, fishing, things like that. And tourism comes up here and right, with the fish. The fish population is very, very decreasing, right? It's harder to catch fish. You got to go out farther. But that's what runs the state. So, I think people in the lower 48 that don't really know, they have this idea about how Alaska works, and they try to run it from the lower 48.
Yeah, I read a book, got mostly through a book. It was a page turner. It was from Ernest Greening, and I think he was the first governor of Alaska.
Okay.
And, it was like, if you really are a fan of reading about the history of bureaucracy, it's a page turner, let me tell you. But it was all about Alaska and its history of becoming a state, and it's just an entire history of just simultaneous neglect and abuse from the federal government, where his stuff is basic as obviously like the big gold rush they had with California. We had the exact same thing up here. Our people didn't stay though. Like our prospectors didn't stick around afterwards. And big reason for that was that we're like, okay, in order for people to stake out claims and property and actually own land, they have to be able to survey and like say what belongs to who. and the federal government wasn't willing to do it. And then when we said, okay, can we just do it ourselves? They said, no, we don't want you to do it either. So,
see, things like that make no sense to me. If the federal government can't control it, then let that place control it. Let the Alaskans control it, right? Versus, nope, just saying, no, you can't do it. Well, Alaskans are very, they find a way to get stuff done, right? You kind of have to. And they would have been just fine doing it themselves, right? There wouldn't have been no Hatfield-McCoy wars and battles and things like that. People would have settled and, okay, we got this, you know?
Yeah, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do a whole book review sometime. But like I said, it is not a page turner, but it's good stuff to know.
Oh, yeah.
So for you, I mean, we know with being here for a long time that there's no such thing as the perfect place to live.
Right.
But for you, what would you say are the pros and cons from the perspective of somebody who's been here for a while?
I'm big on the mountains. Just the jagged peaks, that's definitely a huge pro. Just the nature, right? I've taken pictures of my drive into work and sent it to my coworkers that I had in Georgia, and they're just in awe. Some of the cons, if you're not good at driving in the ice and snow, you'll get there. Like this winter has been a horrible winter as far as not much of a winter at all. Last year we had record snow, and I absolutely loved it. I thought that was amazing. I'm one to, when I move to a place, I look around to see what people are driving. So I knew I needed a commuter car because a diesel truck is not the most gas efficient. And so I went out and bought a little Subaru. And that thing is just phenomenal. So winters, it's what you make of it, what you like. If you like a lot of snow, great. If you don't, maybe go to Southeast Alaska, right? Because they don't get as much, and it's a lot wetter, so it melts very quickly. Nature, if you like fishing, people either go on the rivers around here, right? Copper River, or they drive a couple hours and get a charter, or if they have their own boat. But it's another good thing about Southeast too is that 5 minutes from your house, you're at a boat launch. Unless you have one in the water already right out of harbor. Here, people drive them, and it was weird to me. But the thing about being up here, though, too, is that, right, you can go out, and first winter I was up here house hunting, there was moose everywhere. Every time I drove to and from Anchorage to Wasilla, I'd see 10 moose, right, hay flats and things like that. And this year, it hasn't been like that.
Not really, and I think that really does come down to the snow, because I've talked to somebody before and they said, actually the moose do a lot better in winters with deep snow because wolves and predators can't get to them very easily, and they've got those long legs, so it's extra protection. But when there's hardly any snow, like they're on high alert the entire winter.
I can see that. Plus, there's no snow to really drive them out of the mountains or drive them out of the valleys, so they're going to have a lot more away from people, although they don't seem to really mind people around here, too, because you'll see them walking downtown Anchorage. So.
No, just the dumbest animals you can possibly imagine. Like, remember one time my brother-in-laws and I, were driving along the road, and, I mean, there's very specific rules. Have you gone moose hunting?
I have not. Not yet, no.
Okay, that's when you do, like, let me know. It can be a lot of fun, but it's pretty much hiking with a gun.
Right.
And we get out there, we're driving along the road, we see like a moose there on the side, and the rules are like the brow tines, like the antlers have to have like very specific configuration to it. And it's hard to tell, especially because it was dusky, and we like pull up right alongside it, and it's just staring at us with like big dumb face looking right at us. No clue what's going on, and we turned out we couldn't take a shot, but it was like he was just going to stand there the whole time. Like,
they're not the smartest. I've seen them driving into work where they just walk out on the highway and just stop and just look around. I mean, down to lower 40, you'll have bear jams. Up here, it's moose jams. Luckily, they are big enough that you can generally see them walking up on the highways, on the roads. But there was one time last year to where I was going down KGB, Goose Bay, in Wasilla, and right alongside the road, I didn't even see it until as I was passing it. There was a moose that was between the white line and the guardrail, and I just flew right past it, and I was like, "Oh my God," because moose are so big and so tall that generally, if you're in a car, especially, you're gonna hit the legs, and that whole body's coming right through that windshield. I've seen a few vehicles like that alongside the road, more last year than this year, and it's just detrimental.
Yeah, it's that's one of my biggest fears with driving a car, a Prius, anything like that, because it's like you said, you just knock the legs out from under you. It's got to go somewhere,
Right?
and you've got like a horse that could potentially land on top of you.
Absolutely. The good thing about Alaska, though, with that too, is that if there's a roadkill, and right, then you'll, of course, report it in. Fish and Wildlife will come out there, Alaska State Troopers. And there's a list that Alaska has, or maybe just this area, to where they'll call you up and say, "Hey, there's a moose that's here, got hit on the road. Do you want it? You got however long to get there." And if you say no, they go to the next person. And if there's nothing goes to waste as far as things like that, to where they'll have it butchered up in soup kitchen, or donate it to elderly people or the tribes or things like that. So
I've heard about this list for a long time. Have you actually gone onto said list, or is it something you've heard about as well?
it's something I've heard about.
Okay.
I haven't done it. But I mean, I wouldn't doubt, because you don't see a whole lot of roadkill on here either.
No.
You see all the signs of X number of moose killed, between July and July. But you don't ever see anything alongside the road, so it gets picked up pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's that's a great thing, because we got bears and everything else here, so it just turns into more roadkill at that point.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want the big grizz coming in and chowing down on a moose right alongside the road, because, like you said, you're gonna have another accident waiting to happen. So,
yeah, absolutely. Well, Brad, I really do appreciate you taking the time to kind of share your perspective, background, story, and everything. In closing, do you have, any tips, advice you'd give to someone considering moving to Alaska?
if you're going to move up here, I would definitely come visit it, one, in the summer, and then also two, dead middle of winter. That way you're going to see both sides. There's a lot of people that move up here that they get depression in the winter just because of the lack of sunlight. But just come up here, visit it, get a true aspect, and see what it's going to be like. So,
yeah, no, that's great advice because, it's easy to love winter at her best, but, just wait to see her at her worst.
right, absolutely, absolutely.
Outstanding. Well, again, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And everyone else, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.